What's good? I'd like to welcome y'all to another edition of the Major Music Lounge podcast, joined by your boy D. Dot. If this is your first time here on this channel or listening to the Major Music Lounge podcast, when it comes to the YouTube channel itself, I like to talk all things music production, whether that's new apps, new expansions, could be new updates, also hardware, software, anything in between when it comes to music production. And then as far as the Major Music Lounge podcast, it's a podcast made for creators, music producers that create content just like this, as well as any music producers that are also in the app development space, and then music producers that have any type of placements, whether that's in a film or a television space, as well as with a major artist. Would love to have you on a Major Music Lounge podcast. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok at d._major music, and you can follow me on Twitter at d.mme. This week's topic is going to revolve around time management, and this was actually from a member of the community who posed this question to me about how do I manage my time making beats in addition to just life itself. So really, altogether, when you look at time management, it boils down to different things for each of us. Whether you're a student, whether you have a family, whether you work a job that may, for example, take you beyond 40 hours a week to where you barely have time to do anything else. Maybe you kind of fall in all of those categories that I just mentioned. I can't really tell you, based off of your situation. I can only tell you based off of mine, how I kind of maneuver. I too work a 40-hour-a-week job. I have a girlfriend. I have a family. On top of that, there are other things I like to do outside of music production that have to do with maybe sports, fitness, gaming, things along those lines. So whenever you don't see me doing things on YouTube, I'm probably doing something along the lines of one of those other things. With that being said, you got to kind of, as a creator, one of the things that I always try to say on a lot of my videos, and I probably said it on other episodes of the podcast itself, as a creator in the music space, it's a lot different unless you are signed to a label. And with that being said, whenever you go to work, for example, you work a 9 to 5. You go to work and typically your boss is going to say, okay, well, this is what needs to be done today. And you're going to go out there and do it. Let's just say, for example, that you're wanting to come out with a new album. Okay, well, in that case, how are you going to first plan out your album? Like, do you want to have this album out in 3 months? Do you want to have it out in 6 months? Do you want to have it out in a year? How are you going to work towards that goal? So when it comes to managing your time, whether you're a music producer, whether you're an artist, you really got to take a look at what do you value the most. So for example, let's just say you're working maybe on a beat tape if you're a producer, or maybe you're an artist working on a new album. So you got to really plan out, when do I want to have this album out? Let's say that album can come out 3 months, 6 months, a year, whatever that looks like. So in between there, of course, especially if it's a year, rarely in a full year there isn't a point that life doesn't happen at some point. So you always got to make room for that. I'm not saying that if something happens, you got to go and run to the studio and make sure your music is good first. And if it's an emergency or something else that you got to tend to, that you got to kind of leave it on the back burner. Not necessarily saying that. But if you got to record songs for this album, or you got to do some mixing, or whatever it looks like pertaining to your album, if you got to do those things, but it's a Friday night and maybe your homies call and say, hey, we want to go out tonight, what are you going to choose? Now, it's okay to go out. I'm not saying that it isn't, but what I'm saying is, if it's something that, you do it 1 week, then next thing you know, you're doing it every other week and beyond, and You know, if you're planning that 3 month or 6 month or a year album, it could possibly be getting pushed back over and over and over again. And I know that a lot of up and coming artists, they may be so excited and say, oh, I'm coming out with an album on July 15th. And then next thing you know, July 15th comes around and we can't find that person on their album. And in some cases, they might post online, hey, you know, I pushed it back this time, I pushed it back again. If you want someone to take you serious about your craft, then you got to show them that you're serious about your craft yourself. Otherwise, you may post something online, not get the reaction you want, and just notice that, you know, it's a little bit harder for you to kind of get that following going. You know, me, I've been doing music for quite some time, and I would probably say in more recent years, I've been having more luck building a following than I probably had when I first started. A lot of that is trial and error, finding out different ways to network, and then just also being consistent, because people take note of your consistency. So question might be, how do I manage my time? You know, because we did talk about that a little bit at the beginning. Well, I manage my time mostly like, you know, just saying, for example, that I work a 40-hour-a-week job just like many of you do. Except I may look at my week ahead and say, okay, I'm off on these 2 days and I'm going to shoot a video here, I'm going to shoot a video there. Or I may be getting off at a certain time where in the evenings I'll have a little bit more time to work, or even sometimes in the morning, because I may not go into work until, you know, the kind of noonish time, and I usually wake up early and do things like work out, and I may watch, you know, some of those debate shows in the morning, but I may also have a little bit of time in between that to make a beat or make a video like I'm doing right now. And, you know, it's just also really taking note of the time you do have to create. And with that also being said, like a lot of the editing that I have to do, I may have, like, you know, right now it's the NBA Finals going on, for example. But, you know, as I said at the beginning, there are other things that I like to do sometimes involving the sports world. So I'm probably always watching a game, but I may be doing some editing while I'm watching the game. I may have the game on in the background and I'm just doing some editing to kind of keep my content consistent and being able to release the next day. Not only there do I do a lot of my editing, but also maybe at work. I said it also in other podcasts where I may get a 15-minute break here or there, and you know, that's 15 minutes I can edit on my content. For example, I may do a 45-minute interview with another producer on a podcast. So 15 minutes, that's what, 30 minutes. I get 2 of those a day. So if I have a 45-minute podcast, then 30 of those minutes I'm going through and doing the editing. And then from there, you know, a lot of what I do after I do that initial run through of the podcast, I may then go back and clean it up a little bit. I do some things as far as editing the sound, and then adding the graphic for the Major Music Lounge podcast. And there's some other things I do if I have an artist on or another producer. I may make also a flyer. So not only am I doing like the video editing, but I'm also doing graphics too. But I say that to say, when I do my shooting, I pretty much know that whole week in between that I'm going to probably be doing some editing like that at work, or if I'm watching a game. And that's pretty much how I keep it consistent every week. On the other side of that, you know, I am also an artist. So with that being said, there are times like I've only been doing a podcast for about a year and a half or so. And during that time, I've actually released 2 albums. I've actually released 2 albums since I've been doing the podcast. Now, the first album that I did while I was doing the podcast was The Mixer. which came out November of 2021. And I actually started working on that album in July of 2021. And the album itself again came out November of that year. So last year during the summer was quite different because I didn't do the podcast last summer. I, in fact, took pretty much the whole summer from doing the podcast, and I don't think I brought it back until like September of that year. So I had much more time to do the project. In fact, the Mixer project probably had a lot of tracks that didn't make that album, and I pretty much was like removing tracks and adding tracks, kind of until I released it in November. I remember it was like a week left and I recorded another song. And I'm sure a lot of other artists are like that. But once I kind of got going with the album, still I was doing the podcast in September, so I started that up. And from there, it was just kind of me like looking at my off day and saying, okay, I get up at this time, we'll go ahead and get my workout in. And then right after my workout, I'm going to record the song, I'm going to record my verse this time. I'm going to do a beat making video right after that. And remember, I said I usually do my editing later. So in my mind, I know that I'm going to do my editing later on, whether that's at work. And one of the other things, like with myself, was and if you've been following my community for quite some time, you remember I used to have the iMac, and I switched from the iMac to the MacBook Pro. In fact, before I had the iMac, I had another MacBook Pro. But that has pretty much allowed me to be able to mix my music on the go. And most of the video editing, I do use Final Cut sometimes, but I do a lot of my video editing in LumaFusion on the iPad. If you don't know about LumaFusion, you need to check it out if you're an iPad user. But I like LumaFusion because the workflow is just so much more user-friendly for me personally. Like, I edit my beat making videos like that. That's how you see me get them out so quick. As to where, not saying the workflow in Final Cut is that way, but in Final Cut I would probably need a little bit more time because I don't know where certain things are in Final Cut the way I know where they are inside of LumaFusion. And the reason I got so good at using LumaFusion was with that old iMac, it wouldn't be able to run Final Cut to the best of its ability because that was like a 7 or 8 year computer. That was like a 7 or 8 year old computer by the time I got rid of it. So I ended up having to use LumaFusion for a lot of my video projects, and I just got really good at it over that time. In fact, I did like 2 music videos I edited in LumaFusion. So it's a really powerful app on the iPad. Maybe I'll do a separate video on that at some point. But definitely, if you're an iPad user, you want to check it out. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much how I manage my time is, I look ahead and I kind of plan ahead. I'm always planning ahead. Like, I know what I'm going to do next week when I have free time. At the end of the day, you really got to ask yourself, do you want to do this music as a hobby, or do you want to do this on a higher level to where you can potentially make some money? Doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a millionaire, but you can make a decent living off of it. Everybody has different goals. Everybody has different aspirations. But, placing your music on a back burner to go hang out, over and over and do the same shit, that's one of the things that I got really out of my 20s. Like, I'm 40 right now. I say it on other episodes too, but like, really, I didn't get serious with this probably until like my 30s. But a lot of my 20s, which we were making some great music around that time, but at the same time, I was going out, I was spending money that I probably should have been putting into the music that I was doing in terms of like promotion, possibly doing videos and more. But I was out spending it on drinks and, whatever else there was. And next thing you know, like, it was really when I kind of made the decision to stop clubbing every week and focusing more on my music, where I noticed my network started to grow. I started getting opportunities that I didn't initially get because I was looking for those opportunities. And had I been out clubbing and doing other things, then obviously I probably wouldn't be looking for those opportunities. So you never know sometimes. Just being at the right place at the right time, going after that opportunity, how that really can all align with each other. But I mean, I can remember the times when, after I started putting out projects and seeing that, people were interested in what I was doing. How could I take this and make it even better the next time? Because that's what you're doing each album. You're trying to make the next album better than the previous album. And sometimes it doesn't work that way, but there are some times where it does work that way. And a lot goes into, I don't want to get too sidetracked, but if you're not in a spot you don't need to be, that doesn't have anything to do with improving how you create music or some of the knowledge that you have, just about promoting your music, networking, things like that. I noticed that kind of when I started going to a lot of these music producer networking events. And sure, it was still kind of like going out, because I'll give you an example. Like at the I Standard beat camps that they had, I've been to like 3 or 4 of those, I think, between 2014 and like 2018. I think I did 3 of them. Yeah, I did 3 of them. But what we would do is we would actually meet at the Media Tech Institute, which is kind of like a multimedia school here in Dallas. You can go there for like music production, audio engineering. You go there for video production, a lot of other things related to like media and things along those lines. But we would go there during the day. They had a lot of great panels where you got a chance to go in and speak to other creatives, as well as hear like some of these producers who maybe had some hit records with some major artists out there. We got a chance to hear them talk. Also, same thing with some of these audio engineers and music professionals. But we would go ahead and we would do that pretty much from, like, I think it would start at like 12 p.m. to about 5 or 6 in the evening. And then from there, I think actually it might have been later, even like 7 in the evening. And then from there, we would go out to, they had just different like producer battles at some of these bars or clubs out here in Dallas. And it was still going out, but it was in the context of, you know, it was in the context of networking with other producers. And some of those other producers I have relationships with till this day. Some of them have been on my podcast. Some of them I have created music with. And some of them have led to me getting other opportunities. So even though I was still going to like a music production networking event, we were still having fun in the end, going out to the beat battle at the end of the night and meeting some other people that I have relationships with until this day. So, once you really focus in on your craft, and the thing is, a lot of people, and I'm not going to necessarily say it's ever too late. Every day that goes by is another opportunity lost. So you got to really prioritize everything that you want to do. And, to get some final thoughts around what we discussed today as far as managing your time. Now I haven't used Android, so I couldn't really speak on the Android platform. But if you have an iPhone or an iPad, use your reminders app. Use your notes app. If you got something going on at a certain day, a certain time, whatever that looks like, or if you want to do something at that time, put it down in there and stick to it. And try that for at least, I don't know, try 3 months. Try 3 months of that. Thinking ahead, I always plan around some of these things, but if there's even a game that I want to watch really bad, then I don't care if it's late, me having to stay up late to work or me having to get up early. I'm still gonna get whatever I need to get done. If you ever go on my YouTube page, for example, every week, you'll always see at least, well, it used to be, so my whole formula for how I did things on YouTube initially was I'd have one video that was about beat making. I'd have one topic based video. It could be like how to get started with Beatmaker or how to set up your MPC with MIDI and how to record external sounds to your MPC. Just some type of topic based video. I would have one day for that. And then I would have one day where I would release a instrumental for the artists that follow my channel as well as my Instagram. And that way I had something that was kind of educational and informative for other producers or other creators. And then there was like a beat making video that, a lot of other people also sometimes want to see my process. And then the beat making videos can also kind of intertwine with some of the artists out there, because I've had artists that have seen my beat making videos and they wanted to purchase a beat that I was making on that video, and we ended up doing business. And then there would be one day for the Major Music Lounge podcast. So that was again the video for beat making, there was the informative video, and then there was the podcast video. Now I still do the podcast just like I'm doing now, but also like what I've done now was I added another beat making video for the week, or it could be sometimes maybe 2 informative videos for that week. Anyhow, I kind of plan that a week in advance, like in fact, and only because next week I'm going to be taking a little bit of time off, but I got some of my videos ready to go. And what I like to do, if you aren't already doing this on YouTube, is I like to actually go in and upload my videos ahead of time and then set the live time, whether that's the next day or a couple of days out. And that way I don't have to worry about it. And then outside of that, the videos are also saved to your devices now, especially if they're shorter videos. You're going to have access to them on your mobile device. So if you upload also to like Instagram or TikTok or Twitter or wherever you upload, as long as you're on a go, you can just remember to upload that video to one of those platforms. That way you got YouTube covered and you got all your other social platforms covered as well. But pre-planning like for YouTube uploads helps tremendously. So I think, if you really think about, when I was saying earlier, I make time at work to do a lot of my editing, and you'll notice a lot of the opportunities to create and put out content are around you every day. If you got an iPhone, you can edit a video on your iPhone through iMovie or LumaFusion as well. If you want to make beats, you can make beats on your iPhone. You have an iPad, use it. Use it as a mobile device. There are several apps, which I'm going to do another video on at some point, about the apps that are used to create on the go, because a lot of you have iPads at home, but you're just not using them because you're so reliant upon using a computer. And an iPad can be a very powerful tool to help you stay creative and stay productive on the go. I did not want to make this a lengthy episode of the podcast. I know I can ramble off, and if you watch these, if you listen to these, I do appreciate you. If you're a music producer, music production app developer, if you are a sound designer, like you come out with your own sound packs and things along those lines. You have placements, just like I was mentioning earlier, placements with a major artist or the film and television space. Please get in contact with me. Would love to have you on the Major Music Lounge podcast to tell your story. You never know if you can inspire some of the others that are listening. So you can hit me up on Twitter at d.mme or on Instagram or TikTok at d._major music. If you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. after this episode, I'm gonna be taking about a week off. I'm gonna be leaving town, just doing some R&R things. For the summertime, and the last couple of years I haven't really left the city much. I went to Louisiana one time, and this time is just gonna be some personal time away. All is good. Trust me on that. So I'm gonna be back with some new episodes probably in a couple of weeks. I'm gonna still be creating content here and there, but I got some things also pre-recorded, so you're not gonna go too long without any content from me. Just like I said, I kind of planned ahead. If you didn't catch that earlier in the video, you know. So until next time, it's your boy D. Dot. Catch new episodes of the Major Music Lounge podcast here on YouTube, as well as all podcast streaming platforms. And until next time, be safe, and I'm out.